All right. Good afternoon and happy Veterans Day, everyone. Welcome to a very special Veterans Day Turnkey Talk. I'm Molly Wardak-Folt, the Vice President of Partnership Activation for the Detroit Red Wings and the Detroit Tigers, and a proud governing board and founding member of the Pro Sports Assembly. On behalf of the board, we want to thank all of you for joining today, and specifically to our founding members who are out there, who have joined in the last couple of months. Thank you very much for being a part of our family. You know, members, please continue to share our mission and vision, and please invite others within your network to join and get involved. We've got a lot of great things on the horizon and are excited for all of you to be a part of it. Of course, while individual members are a key to our success, our organizations that come on board really play a pivotal role as well. So I really want to give a special shout out to the Dallas Mavericks for their seed funding to get the assembly launched. Yeah, woohoo! We certainly couldn't have done it without you. For those of you out there who are not yet members, thank you for joining today. The Assembly is the first and only member-led organization for people who work in professional sports. And when I say that, I mean people at teams, leagues, and unions. Our purpose is really the advancement of diverse and inclusive leadership. Lots of information to check out on prosportsassembly.org. So let's go ahead and dive in for the reason why we are here today on this special Veterans Day Turnkey Talk. Veterans can provide a connection to truly a diverse talent pool. It's a critical time in our social history. Obviously, we have seen massive outcries against injustices due to racism, sexism, sexual identity. Employers really can no longer simply pay lip service to their diversity policies. The veteran talent pool comes with an embedded diversity that can really help employers expand their slate of talent. And we really think that this is where we can make a difference. There's an unbelievable number of veterans out there. According to the Institute of Veterans for Military and Family Affairs at Syracuse University, there are 1.8 million female veterans, 2.3 million Black veterans, and 1.3 million Hispanic or Latina veterans in the US today. Certainly, that's a tremendous group of individuals to pull from when we think about diverse and inclusive leadership at our organizations. So before I turn this over to Kelly and the panelists, we want this to be an engaging conversation. So we invite your questions. Please submit them through the Q&A or the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. About halfway through the hour, we'll be sharing a few questions with the panel. So just to make sure that it's working, go there now. Tell us where you're from and what organization you represent. We'd love to see and hear from you. If you're on social media, which I'm sure all of you are, and you're using hashtags today, remember to use hashtag #PowerOfProSports, hashtag Veterans Day throughout our discussion. All right, let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to our host today, Kelly Lewis, who's the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Turnkey Search. Thanks,
Thank you so much, Molly. Today, we have a panel designed to inform leaders within sport about the veteran experience. We'll be hearing some personal takes, dispelling some myths around veterans in the workplace, and gaining some insight on how to attract, hire, and retain veterans. And equally as important, to celebrate the men and women who have served our country. Our goal today is simple. Whatever your role is in this industry, we hope that you will walk away with something new, a new idea, appreciation, or strategy to further diversity, equity, and inclusion in our business. So with that being said, let's get started with our panel introduction. Our panelists will be sharing a little bit about their background. They're going to tell us about how they find themselves in this space, what is their connection to sport, and we're going to start off with Justin.
Thanks, Kelly. First, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there, and then my colleagues, esteemed colleagues on this panel. I'm probably the least qualified from these to be on here, so it's a pleasure. Thank you to Turnkey Search and also Pro Sports Assembly for doing this. I absolutely believe in what Pro Sports Assembly is doing, and was fortunate to be connected through a veteran to Laura Dixon and be able to find out about this and join this right from the start. And so I it's an honor to do this. I just want to share a couple things about my story. I went to West Point. I was fortunate enough to be recruited by West Point's lacrosse coach to play lacrosse there, and that's probably the biggest reason I'm there. I don't think I would have gone to West Point had I not been recruited to play a sport there. And so very fortunate. I wouldn't have done it any other way. So after West Point, was fortunate to serve in several different roles, doing field artillery within the military, deployed to Iraq, came back, actually had a chance to play a couple years of professional lacrosse and go to business school, was in recruiting command, which I'll circle back to later, was just very important because you're trying to recruit the next leaders, the next generation of military. And then circling it back, got a job back at West Point in the athletic department as a director of operations for a few teams, and then also doing some things around leader and character development, which led me to meeting several people within professional sports. I thought I was destined for a world in consulting or finance or something like that. Always wanted to be in sports, but didn't know how. Got connected to RC Buford in the Spurs front office on a visit to West Point, and he linked me up with Kim Bahuni and international basketball operations within the NBA, and I was able to utilize the Department of Defense Skill Bridge program. So the last 6 months of my active duty, I spent as a fellow within international basketball ops, and that was kind of a tryout, and was very fortunate to be offered a full-time role there after that Skill Bridge program. So now I'm here at the NBA, with a great group, a great team that's doing some great work around the world. So that's kind of the quick version on how I got to where I am today. So I appreciate the time and looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Justin. We're going to do a little deep dive to figure out what Skill Bridge is a little later, but we're going to hear back from Keshia.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Kesha Robinson. I want to first say thank you all for inviting my voice to this conversation today. I truly appreciate it. Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans on this call. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your dedication. I am the Senior Director for Ethics and Compliance with the Dallas Mavericks. I have responsibility for our compliance training program, which also includes investigations and a couple other things, as well as I help lead our HR leadership development training program as well. But I think my role here is probably, I guess my career path here is a little bit probably non-traditional. So I did serve 10 years as an Air Force reservist at Tinker Air Force Base, which means I'm originally from Oklahoma. I moved to Dallas in 2005, so this was pre-Katrina. So I'm building up my story so you guys know why I'm telling you this. But we didn't have any sports teams there. So in Oklahoma, if you know anything about sports and football, Oklahoma Sooners and Oklahoma State Cowboys are basically our NFL teams. We didn't have an NBA team. The Supersonics came after Katrina, and then of course, you know how that evolved. But when I moved to Dallas, clearly became a Cowboys fan, a Mavs fan, and was already a fan of sports in general, just growing up in Oklahoma. And I played a ton of sports growing up. So I've always had a love and affinity for sports because it's always been a part of my life. You're not from Oklahoma and you don't like college football. So it's just, it's part of your DNA. It's what happens when you're born in Oklahoma. But I spent 15 years at AT&T. So I feel like that was kind of the groundwork for all of the work I've been able to do leading up to this point. But I will say that I accredit the military for getting me active and involved in what I would consider my human resources career. Over the past maybe 20 years, I was introduced to this particular career path through the military. So I was in college, going to school, thought I was going to be somebody else. And turns out I think I'm still pretty much somebody, and I feel like fulfilling my life's work and my passion through serving people. So after spending 15 years at AT&T, there was an opportunity open here at the Dallas Mavericks. I applied, interviewed for it, was super excited, knew that I could make a difference, and knew that I could infuse all of the information that I'd learned over the course of my 15, 18, 20-year career between the military and AT&T here at the Mav. So that's just a little bit about my career journey, but I will tell you that I played a very active role at AT&T as a part of our veterans ERG, or veterans kind of recruiting initiative program. So I did a lot of PSAs, participated in tons of different recruiting efforts, was part of focus groups, you name it. So in efforts to help them recruit and retain veterans at AT&T. So here I am at the Mavs. I'm super excited. Of course, they also are supportive of Veterans Initiative. So here I am, and that's me.
Thank you so much. John.
Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate the opportunity today, and nice to meet you, Justin and Keshia, and shout out to everybody on the other end of this. Although we can't see you, we really appreciate you being here today and letting us share our stories. Keshia, I'm also from Oklahoma. I grew up there. My dad was an Air Force officer at Tinker Air Force Base. So we've got that in common. I bucked the trend. I went to college on a Navy ROTC scholarship and was commissioned as an ensign in the U.S. Navy after graduation. Went to flight school in Pensacola, Florida, and flew EA-6 Prowlers in the Navy for about 9.5 years. I was a naval flight officer, which for those of you who aren't as familiar, you can basically think Goose and Top Gun rather than Maverick. I was the expendable character that gets killed off at the end of the movie, which is just fine. It was a lot of fun, and really taught me so much. I got into it for the adrenaline, to be honest with you, because I thought it would be a blast, and it was all that. But I think what I really learned through those experiences was that the military, as a young person, afforded me an opportunity to impact other people's lives in a way that is pretty unique, and that's what I really valued. And I remember when I made the decision to get out of the Navy and go to business school and get an MBA, my application essays, I wrote about that, about how I was convinced that the parts of the military that I enjoyed the most, which was impacting other people, those were things that I was going to continue to do long after I left the cockpit. And I feel like I've been able to do that in a field, in an industry that is every bit as exciting and dynamic as carrier aviation, frankly, and that's the sports and entertainment world. And so I've been fortunate enough to have a number of positions in the industry in a couple different teams and leagues. And at present, I'm the chief executive officer of BSE Global, which is the parent company of, you probably guessed it, the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center, and as well as the Long Island Nets and the Nets GC of the 2K League. So that's me.
Thank you so much for sharing this insight into you all. And so our next question is really trying to gauge this understanding about how your military experience has prepared you for your work today. And I know, Justin, you were talking about the Skill Bridge program. I'm familiar with it, but I'm not sure all of our attendees are. So if you can start off and dive a little deep into that, and then I'll leave it up to Kesha and John to chime in after.
Yeah, perfect. I think the biggest thing throughout the military that I learned was that I took with me was to be intellectually curious, and that right there, that love of learning and to never stop doing that, stuck with me right from the start. There's a teacher my senior year at West Point that shared a subscription to The Economist and said, you're going to be a military officer, you need to understand how people view different problems, issues, everything from a different lens, from a global perspective, from everything. And so that's when I kind of took that and started to reach out to people, meet people, read different things, and really try to understand leadership, people, dynamics around that, and how that could help me be a better leader and help my unit and everything like that. And so learning that over the years took me the course of, those typical military jobs to business school to recruiting to West Point, and I wanted those challenges. I wanted to learn new things. I never wanted to be comfortable in what I was doing, and so that led me to trying to figure out. I'd spent 12 years in the military, and it was kind of that time. Do I stay in, until I retire, or do I get out and challenge myself with something new? And I think what I talked about consulting or finance, I think that was it's a great option. There's great organizations, great people. But I always knew I want to work in pro sports. I wanted to work closely with people and teams. And I got this opportunity through RC and through Kim, and I jumped at it. And I knew I was brand new to it. That was my first job out of the military, and so it was daunting and trying to figure out corporate life. What does taking time off look like? Everything like that. And so the SkillBridge program is a Department of Defense program that allows you to spend up to 6 months in an organization getting on the job training and while you're still in the military. So the Army still paid my salary, paid my benefits, everything. Just got this great on the job training. And like I said, it was a tryout. So it was a feeling out. There's no obligation at the end. I wanted to make sure that it was a great fit for me. The NBA and international basketball ops also need to do the same thing. And, fortunately it's worked out and it's been great. So that program, I think, is underutilized within the pro sports world. And I'm happy that Pro Sports Assembly is really digging into, what that could look like around leagues, teams, and stuff like that. Definitely utilized within financial world, different industries, GE, some of those Fortune 500 companies, I think could be a great opportunity to start as a hiring initiative within pro sports to get more people and get that diverse military perspective. So that's it was a phenomenal opportunity, and I'm glad I jumped at it. And there's been ups and downs, but that SkillBridge program set me up for success down the road. So, and I will add one more fact that I think is important to note for veterans. Through studies, 43% of veterans leave their first job within their first year out of transitioning out of the military. 80% leave before year 2. And that's critical when you're looking at different initiatives. And so SkillBridge is trying to bridge that so that you really look at what talent management looks like within veterans and how you retain veteran talent, because there are a lot of stressors coming out of the military. There are a lot of unknowns, and I want to see pro sports as a viable opportunity and not some like, oh, they work in pro sports. That could never happen for me. And so SkillBridge is a great opportunity for that.
Thank you. And I'm glad to know that the program is something you can speak about and has been successful for you. And so for all our HR individuals out there, please look into the program. It seems to be a great opportunity to get veterans within our industry. Kesha, did you have something else to share?
Yeah, so I will piggyback on what Justin said. The military provides you a never-ending experience of learning for the most part. I think for me, it helped, really, like I said before during my introduction, it helped really kind of develop a strong, I guess, will to want to serve people even more so than I did there. And so I worked so I started full-time at AT&T just about 6 months after I had joined the military, gone to basic training. And so imagine I'm going to school, full-time, I'm working full-time, and I'm a reservist. And so I got to see, in my opinion, the best of both worlds. So when I say I don't have a traditional career path, I truly don't. So as a personnel specialist, which translates into HR on the civilian side, but in the military, it's called personnel. I had the opportunity to not only work with, active duty folks, but also reservists. And so I'm seeing, reservists who also have jobs like me. And then I'm also seeing folks come off active duty and then kind of like, what's next for me? But I will say that I think it created that hunger in me to want to determine what my life would be like what should my career path be. And so in working in personnel, I think, again, it just kind of catapulted me into, where I am today. I mean, there's steps that, I've taken along the way, but it wasn't a leap to the top. It was a walk across. It was a walk up. Sometimes it was a walk down. So I do believe that that experience really helped me shape what honestly my career turned out to be at AT&T. And now here, of course. So
Thank you. And so I'm picking up on these core values, right? We're talking this endless learning. And as someone who's done her research and very familiar with the Department of Defense and our military service, core values is really something that really holds the uniform and no longer uniform together by this shared belief. Rather, that is integrity, extended learning, courage, respect, or commitment. And so the next question comes directly to John. And so what questions do you seek your organization to embody internally and externally? And as Justin put it, so that sports can continue to be a viable place for veterans to want to work.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the question, Kelly. I think, I'd start by saying that, I feel very fortunate to work at and help lead an organization that, takes a lot of pride in its approach to values and its approach to our culture and our mission. Joe and Clara Sy, in particular, the owners of the franchise, have made a huge commitment to diversity and inclusion, and to integrating our organization within the broader Brooklyn community. And probably the most notable symbol of that is their $50 million commitment to a social justice fund that they announced earlier this summer. And so, I look at our outreach when it comes to diversity and inclusion, or veterans more specifically, within that broader construct of how do we use this organization to not only entertain people, which is massively important, right? I talk about it all the time. We're in the happiness business. We provide a relief for people from their daily lives. And that's important in and of itself. But how can we build upon that platform in an even broader way to impact our communities, whether it's serving as a voting center, as I know many of the folks on this call were involved in voting in the past election. We've been using Barclays Center as a food bank during the coronavirus shutdown, but also as an employer of choice and as an employer that seeks to provide opportunities to folks who may face challenges in providing opportunities. And I think veterans are certainly amongst that group. It's interesting when you approached me on this, participating in this, Kelly. I don't often think of myself as being a diverse hire. You told me that I was, and I as a veteran myself leading an organization, I'll be honest with you, veteran hiring has probably not been at the forefront of my own thinking in terms of improving diversity. But I do think it's very important. And I think one of the challenges for those of you who didn't serve, who are on this call, should understand is that you learn a lot in the military about leadership, about attention to detail. You learn these core skills, but then you also learn very job specific functions that don't always translate as well, right? So flying an airplane off of an aircraft carrier is a very specific set of skills that don't necessarily translate directly into a lot of the things that I've been doing. And so a lot of veterans, regardless of their specialty, face challenges translating those broader skills that they've learned into a new environment. And the employers aren't quite sure what to make of them. And oftentimes we as veterans aren't sure what to do ourselves. And so then I think we also sometimes, veterans face some stereotypes about the personality or the work style that they bring to the workforce. I think there's still a stereotype out there of command and control and, do what you're told. And those are really, really antiquated in my experience. And frankly, the people I worked with, it was an all volunteer force. And certainly you had a chain of command, but you had to inspire people to lead them. And that's no different from what we face today. In fact, you had an even bigger challenge because you couldn't hand out promotions and pay raises or bonuses to reward people. You reward them with little pieces of ribbon and metal that you put on their uniforms that had no intrinsic value, right? So so it was anything but that command and control and environment. I'm going on at too long, but I just wanted to say that I think there's a lot of challenges that veterans face in making that jump. And I think that it behooves all of us in industry who are leaders to help them make it.
Thank you, John. And no, you're not going on and on. You helped me pivot to my next question here. And so when we think about veterans, as you put, it's this idea of like chain of command and, you know, that leadership component. We toss around that word out a lot, like veterans are great leaders. Yes, and right. So when we think about this, what are some other skill sets that you all feel like you have that aren't actually being leveraged the way that they could be within an organization or are typically overlooked, such as Justin brought a global citizen mindset? What are some other ones?
You know, I would probably circle back to, I would say, I feel like I'm leveraging that now, but I think in many organizations, a leadership component. Like, I think that that is one of the most underrated skill set that most veterans have, that a lot of organizations just overlook, or even the veterans themselves. I know Justin mentioned it before, but oftentimes, I'm sorry, maybe it was John, but they don't know how to fully leverage those skills that they do have, and they don't know how to translate them into the civilian world. But I find personally that leadership is one of the most undervalued skills from a veteran's perspective sometimes, and also employers.
Yeah, and I think part of that component is being able to get the right people in the right room and have conversations. The military is one of the most diverse and cross collaborative organizations in the world. So like you can't do your job without other people, other support, and if you don't have conversations across the different types of support, whether it's personnel, whether it's technology, whether it's medical or supply, you're not going to be able to do your mission. And so I think that being able to leverage that in the civilian world is huge, is to saying, oh, I don't know the answer. Let's get these people in the room and figure out and make a decision and go with it. And so out of that leadership comes that understanding of inclusivity and getting that team focused on the right things.
I'd say, in my experience, it's, common traits that the people that I served with is almost without exception, they were well above average in terms of being able to make decisions under scenarios with imperfect information and lots of pressure, right? So if you find that valuable in your company, you might want to look to veterans. Another thing that I think is very common is a coachability that we don't always find in our workplaces. After every flight I flew in, we would, after we landed back on the ship, we would all sit down and spend 30 minutes to an hour debriefing exactly what went right and what went wrong in that flight. And that's a level of introspection and openness to criticism that frankly, is not always welcomed in the civilian workforce, right? You have to manage people's and that was the thing I had to learn early on in my career, that people don't always want that kind of feedback. And so, but I think you'll find that a lot of veterans are used to it and comfortable receiving that. And so if that's something you value in your workforce, I think you'll find that with veterans as well.
So some takeaways I'm hearing here is we have individuals with an innate skill to be cross-functional, great decision makers, can handle the pressure of the job. So if we think about our sales roles where it's numerous calls and high return on investments there, that goes right. Coachability, and then leadership, because as Keshia mentioned, that is also super important. And so again, as John just stated, when we think about this concept of recruitment, of veterans, I'm curious if you all feel comfortable sharing how many veterans do you happen to know within your organization currently?
So within the NBA league office, we just sent out a note. There are 19 veterans, including myself in the league office. So definitely a small network, and yeah, many of them are referees. So
Keshia, you're unmuted. Are you sharing? Am I losing you?
would say maybe 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
John?
we have, counting myself, we only have 3 out of approximately 300 employees at BSC. Now, I don't have the numbers, unfortunately, for our partners at Levy Restaurants and ASM, who manages our facility. And I would suspect there's quite a few amongst those populations, but no doubt underrepresented, and something that we intend to improve.
So as a collective panel, what are some challenges do you think is hindering veterans from coming within our workspace?
Well, I can't speak for every organization, but I know, some organizations have actual recruiting programs specifically targeted toward veterans. And so we personally don't have that here. And I haven't seen that a lot across sports, period. And so that could possibly be one deterrent that maybe keeps veterans from applying for opportunities. But I also believe that, you know, they tend to go toward the companies who are promoting that the most sometimes. And so I think we have to reevaluate, what we can accomplish and what we can get out of hiring veterans. So as John said, just kind of rethink the strategy around what does it mean to, recruit veterans, So yeah, I would say that.
And so Kesha, I just want to stay here for a second, because I know at AT&T, you spoke about ERG and a deliberate recruitment of veterans. What are some strategies that you think might translate very simply within our organization?
So from a recruiting perspective, AT&T leveraged their employee resource group. It's AT&T Veterans. They leveraged them quite a bit. They would go to recruiting fairs. They would also participate in other veteran type events that would be hosted across, different government platforms or different organizations. So there are post military experience organizations that help veterans transition into the civilian workforce, and they partner with them quite closely. One of the other things they also did was assign a buddy system. So if they actually recruited somebody, or they had a veteran actually working in the company, because you don't actually have to be a veteran to serve as part of AT&T Veterans, but they would always bring them alongside of any initiative that they had. So as they were going out talking to veterans or looking to recruiting them, they would hear directly from a veteran that actually works for AT&T. So they wouldn't just talk to a regular recruiter or anybody else. They would really partner with that ERG and with other veterans across the company to help them kind of push that message of, hey, we're looking for veterans and we're looking to hire them. And of course, they set a number out hey, we're going to hire, let's just say 10,000 veterans over the next, 5 years. And so, of course, that sent quite a few people flocking to, that particular organization for an opportunity.
Thank you. John, you're not on mute, so I don't know if you're getting ready to speak. I don't want to interject.
No, I think Keshia covered it well.
Awesome. And so as we pivoted and come to a close, because I do want to make sure we have questions and answering from our attendees, we're going to transition to some advice. So we do have a couple veterans here who are trying to get into the industry. What advice do you have for them?
Email me.
Try that email out loud. No.
It's not hard to find, but it's jabbamondi@bscglobal.net. Email me.
Thank you.
I would also piggyback. I know we spoke about this a little earlier, but make sure you're appropriately representing yourself and your skill sets and what you have to offer on your resume, on your LinkedIn. That's another thing that I think post-transition, many veterans actually need a lot of help with, is establishing a profile on LinkedIn or any other professional websites, ensuring that you have a current and up-to-date resume, that it is something that is attractive to recruiters. And also just exercise patience. Sometimes, you may not get the opportunity the first time you apply, but if there is for any reason a gap between what you did and what you'd like to do, think about the training required. Think about the opportunities that you would have to go and get experience let's just say if like you're like John, you flew planes, but maybe you want to be a graphic designer. Well, there's a little bit of a gap, a skills gap there that you may need to go and get, certified or get some additional training. So think about ways to enhance your career profile through, additional research and also for sure training.
I can't help but underscore enough of that, Kesha. As a recruiter here, please ensure that your LinkedIn is up to date. We do take a look at that. That is one of our primary sources to, scout out good talent. And so if you're not someone who's actively involved on LinkedIn, please do. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what LinkedIn looks like. So just because you create a profile does not mean you populate to the top of individual feeds. So I need you to be a little more active on there, keep things up to date, give some information. We're looking for quantitative data, right? Like what impact have you had? But we'll have another turnkey talk about that at another date. It seems that we might have lost Justin, but he is still here with us as we continue to take some questions from the audience. So I am getting ready to go look into our question and answering to see what we have here. And our first question to our two panelists still remaining: what are some misjudgments made when using or considering veterans? And I think we kind of touched point on this earlier, but if you have anything else you want to share.
Yeah, I think we touched on that earlier. I think I'll just add on to the Keshia's comments on your last question, though, Kelly, if that's all right. I would say that advice for veterans when you're looking to get into the sports industry is very similar to what I would tell anybody looking to get into the sports industry, which is from the outside looking in, you often think about, oh, I want to work in sports. But the right way to think about it, in my opinion, is in terms of the various functions, right? So we don't go out there and hire sports industry people. I never do that. We hire salespeople. We hire accountants. We hire marketing experts, right? We hire physical trainers, right? So you have to think about the functions that exist within these companies and what type of function you might be a good fit for. And that's challenging for anybody, but it can be more challenging when you're coming from the military because it may not map as well. If you worked in personnel like Keshia did, obviously it maps really well to HR. But if you were a logistics expert, it may not map as well to a functional area at a pro sports team. And so you may have to get creative. You may have to add to your skill set. You may have to figure out a better way to tell your story. But the first thing you have to do is identify what's the function that you're trying to do at a team rather than just generically, I want to work in sports. But I'd give the opposite advice to people at sports teams that are looking to recruit people from the military. Don't just think about veterans as a monolithic group, right? As we've been talking about, there are mechanics, there are security police, there are all these different job functions within the military too. And I would encourage you to think about those and how they might map onto to what you're looking for in your own organization.
Thank you. And I know both of you end up having professional degrees. So what led to your decision to go back to school, whether it's the MBA or your master's in arts?
Keshia, I'll let you go first.
So I think innately a continuous learner. Like I'm always seeking to know and to grow. And of course, it helps your earning potential. And so that was some of the key, I guess, motivators for me to go back to school. I really wanted to focus on, just being better and getting better and learning more and understanding what it is I'm doing. So that's it for me.
Yeah, so I'll give you my answer on that. I think that I think the military always will succeed in attracting high talented individuals at the entry point because it offers opportunities that you can't find anywhere else in society, right? Like if you want to be a SEAL, like there's only one place to go do it, right? And so that draws in some really incredible talent. Military often loses their top talent or a lot of their top talent at sort of the mid-career point. And the reason for that is because the military's promotion structure is largely tenure-based rather than performance-based. Certainly there's elements of both, but there's no, you think about, a 29-year-old general manager of a Major League Baseball team, for example. Like, there's no 29-year-old admirals in the Navy, no matter how talented they are, right? And so a lot of people who might perceive that they could be on a faster track outside the military will make that jump at the mid-career point. And that's a really good time and place to look for elite level talent, in my opinion, that have gotten frustrated. So looping this back to your answer, your question, like, for me, it was a very simple calculation. I got into Stanford Business School, and I felt like that was going to be an accelerant in my own career that was not going to be replicated if I stayed in the military, right? So it was a very cold, rational calculation in my part. And I saw a lot of people at about that 10-year mark make similar decisions.
Thank you. Great answer. And so the final question, and we don't have any more questions from the audience that I'm seeing, and so we might get out of here a little earlier. We have a lot of D&I practitioners in the audience as well as allies. And so is there anything you just want to say to them about your experience, especially as we think about D&I as relates to the veteran world?
I wanted to just chime in about not only recruiting, but retaining. So oftentimes I've seen veterans hired at some of the very entry level positions in companies, which is, fine if that's where you deem appropriate, but you have to think about the life cycle of a veteran in your company. I know we got some facts that said a veteran typically changes jobs after the first year, maybe the second. So think about what that really looks like. Does your program really cater to a veteran? So do you have the right people at the table to help you strategize and to plan, not only to recruit, but also to retain? Have you surveyed any of the veterans that are already within your organization? What do they feel like you're missing? What could you be doing better or less of? I think that that's critical, because I also think that, again, we've talked about being, continuous learners and how the military affords you that opportunity for the most part in the job that you're in. But think about that outside in the regular world too. Like they innately, not innately, but they have that level of consistency that they expect because they've gotten, this in the military. So think about ways to connect those two. And of course, we've also heard about, like John said about promotions. Well, think about pay. Well, you just show up every day and you're paid, versus at some other organizations, it may take, a couple different things to get paid depending on what type of employee you are, and not to mention benefits. So make sure that these are all key resources that you fully vetted and thought out, so that when you go to recruit or even retain a veteran, that you have the appropriate program in place to ensure that you not only attract, but you also retain.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I want to just jump on that. And I'm sorry I missed the last few minutes. But same thing, the retainment is crucial. And so mentorship is one critical piece within sports that I think can continue to help. So whether it's onboarding, whether it's that retainment, how do you link people up to give people a role model so that they can see their career growth and they can see themselves in that position? And that goes with any diversity and inclusion initiative. People have to see that there's that path, that there's that growth opportunities. And if that's not happening within role modeling, within mentorship programs, it's hard and that's why you'll see people jump at different opportunities, because they don't know that path, and that uncertainty wears on people. And so understanding performance management, talent management has to be a focus, and we can't leave that to chance. And then I think for me, just creating those pathways, whether it's through internships, whether it's through partnerships with like American corporate partners or other programs that help bridge those gaps and help hiring managers and just people in general understand the skills that veterans bring. And then veterans understand, roles within sports and entertainment. As we know, there's thousands of different ways you can go, and trying to understand those and navigate those is difficult if you never have that education or understand or have people to talk to. So I think I would like to just point out the NBA has just done a phenomenal job with diversity and inclusion initiatives, and I know they are keen to really add this veterans piece into it to continue that growth over the years at the league and team level. So it's a great organization to be a part of when it comes to the focus on diversity and inclusion. So.
And so we do have one more question about allyship, right? Because the word ally is not only a verb, but it's also a noun. And so as we think about it from a verb standpoint, how can individuals become more of an ally within the workspace for veterans? What should they be doing? How can they ensure that, people are finding their group or their sense of belonging within a culture of an organization?
So I'll just chime in really quickly and say that I think, speaking from my prior experience at AT&T, the AT&T Veterans ERG group was instrumental in creating that culture for veterans. Remember, I talked about the buddy system. I know Justin has talked about mentorship. That was also another factor that they had. And then they started like a training and development program for veterans as well. So I think that those are, like if you have ERGs, certainly leverage them. Even if you don't and you still, would like to be an ally, I mean, have some conversations, just educate yourself, have some conversations, get to know those folks, support the initiatives. I know a lot of organizations are supporting veterans initiatives in one way or another. And so make sure those are appropriately highlighted and that people are actively engaged, and to know that you don't have to be a veteran to participate in X, Y, or Z. Allyship is absolutely important, but yeah.
And so as we close out here, the final question I have is, how are you all celebrating today, if at all? Are you taking some time for yourself, having a drink, great dinner? What would that look like for you all?
Yeah, no, I got a chance to walk with my daughter over to our town. There was a socially distanced outdoor ceremony, quick ceremony that featured several veterans. And so it was just cool to walk over there and then, have my 3-year-old be able to see and just watch the flag and everything like that. So yeah, and then I have reserve duty next week, so I'll spend the week away from my family. So just trying to hang out with them and have dinner. But happy Veterans Day to everybody, and thanks to Turnkey Search and Pro Sports Assembly for this.
I'm going from this call to another veterans event. We're going to be giving a virtual tour of our facility to a group of veterans, and we've got some command coins that with the Brooklyn Nets logo that we'll be sending out to them. I wish we could give it to them in person, but that's what we're going to be doing later on this afternoon.
Awesome. So shameless plug, just really quick, John, but my dad was in the Navy and my brother is currently serving on active duty in the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia, assigned to the USS Baton. Just anyway, I'll email you. But so I guess the highlight of my day, I don't have any plans. I'll probably go to dinner, but I dug my OBDU top out of a closet that I have. And so I'm super excited that actually I can even still get into it. But I'll probably just wear this all day. Like, I haven't worn it in years. It's got my old stripes on it and everything else in my name. So that's been a highlight of my day. I don't really have any other plans. Maybe go grab dinner. That's about it.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. This has been a very insightful conversation. And as I stated in the beginning, I'm hoping that individuals, no matter where you are in this organization within sport, not only left with learning a new insight, you gained some new perspective about the veteran experience and going to go back to your organizations and continue to champion DE&I. So with that being said, we want you all to have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your Veterans Day. To our hosts and panelists here, and have a great Wednesday. Bye, you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Turnkey.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.